Hello, and welcome to the very first episode of Who Knows, a podcast where I pretty much talk about all of my inner thoughts and feelings and question a whole lot. So if you're into that kind of thing, well, welcome. And I really wanted to create this podcast to have a space for people kind of in this in-between area of life. And honestly, I think we kind of always are in this in-between area of life, but I'm on a spiritual journey, I'm on a healing journey, and I don't know everything. I'm not a master, I'm not a perfect tarot reader, I'm not a perfect psychic, I'm not perfect, and I feel like a lot of the media out today about spirituality, and this could just be my perception, but it feels like people who are very advanced, people who've been doing light work for a long time, and we need that 100%. Those are the teachers, the mentors that we learn from, but I just want to have a space for people who are in this gray area, somewhere in between, where you've woken up spiritually, or you're on this healing journey and you're doing the work, but also you don't know everything. I mean, how could we? But anyway, so that's kind of why I'm here. I wanted to start a podcast for a long time, and I think my spirit guides are probably clapping right now that I'm actually doing this, because I've realized that a lot of the ideas and the thoughts that I've had, some of them were divinely guided and were more of like, oh no, you should do that, rather than just a thought. And I remember the first time I thought about doing this, it was about 2 years ago. So sorry to my spirit guides, but I'm finally doing it. So I haven't even introduced myself, actually. That's crazy. I'm gonna get better at this, I promise. But hi, my name is Sky, or Skylar, and welcome to Who Knows? Because who knows? Who knows what we're gonna talk about? Who knows what's actually going on? Who knows how to navigate this life? We're all just figuring it out, and that's why I'm here, to talk about figuring it out. And yes, I want to preface all of this again by saying I am by no means a master. I do think I'm somewhat wise, but I don't know everything. And I'm here to learn as much as hopefully you guys are too. So just want to navigate this together, and thank you so much for listening. I'm really excited to start this journey, and I promise you it won't always be this bad. This is definitely just some troubleshooting, but I felt like I just needed to start. I actually sat here for an hour thinking about what to name the podcast. So that may eventually change, but the only thing that has stuck is who knows, because who knows what the name of this is going to be. I don't even know. I'm just here, and I'm glad I'm here, and I'm glad you're here. So anyway, I guess we should start with the first topic of this podcast, which will probably be the entirety of this podcast, because I have a lot to say on this topic, and that is purpose. I don't even know if I really believe in purpose, or if we have one, which is really ironic, because I think the last 6 months of my life I've literally been asking myself in spirit, what is my purpose? What is my purpose? What am I supposed to do with my life? What is it? What's the one thing that I should be doing? And I feel like that's such a silly thing, because I don't think there is one thing. I think there's many things that we can live out our quote-unquote purpose, if you will. And while I was writing up the I guess document, why can't I think of the actual word? Well, I was writing up the schedule for this podcast. I don't know what I'm saying. The concepts for this podcast episode. I realized that I wanted to talk about purpose, but I don't even know if I really resonate with the idea of having a purpose anymore. I actually want to look up what that means. Like, what is having a purpose? What is the definition? The reasons you get up in the morning. Purpose can guide life decisions, influence behavior, shape goals, offer a sense of direction, and create meaning. For some people, purpose is connected to vocation, meaningful, satisfying work. Which I guess I do agree with that to some degree, but I don't know to the full extent the concept of having a purpose is something that I want to continue saying or believing in. And what I realize is I think I really just resonate with being in alignment. And I think you can be in alignment and do many things. I don't think, like, if I decide my purpose is to help people, there's not one way to help people, you know what I mean? It could be therapy, it could be tarot reading, it could be working at a hospital, it could be being I don't know, it could be anything, really. So I guess having a purpose is kind of not the point. I think that's it. Having a purpose is not really the point. It's about the journey, and it's about being in alignment with your highest good. Alignment has been a very influential theme in my life in the last, extremely prevalent in the last 6 months, but honestly, the last 2 years, really since I woke up, like, what is going to allow me to live the most fulfilling life? And that's been a struggle because, and I can't be the only one, even after waking up, it all seems so simple. Do what you love, do what fulfills you, do what satisfies you. But being in this world, living in a capitalist society, it doesn't always feel that simple. And that's what I've struggled with the most, is how do I exist in this world, but also do what feels right for me. And I have wondered that for a long time, but like I was saying, it's been extremely prevalent in the last 6 months. I've had some pretty big life changes, and now that I'm almost on the other side, I realized that it was another tower moment / dark night of the soul. And I do want to elaborate on both of those topics, but I honestly think the dark night of the soul / the tower deserves its own episode. So I guess in short, it's when it's divine intervention and spirit takes away everything that doesn't serve you. And that's a really simplified version, but it is very drastic. It's very difficult to get through, and when you're going through it, it does not feel like divine intervention. It feels like, oh my gosh, what the actual fuck is going on right now in my life? I thought I was a spiritual being. I thought I was doing great, and now all of a sudden everything is being ripped away, and I'm terrified and I'm scared, and I'm feeling all of these really dark and intense emotions. And yeah, that basically is what was happening to me in my life after some pretty major life changes. So if you can imagine, and I would like to elaborate more, but I'm going to just keep it cute for now, and as we get into this whole thing, I will probably share more about my life and what I'm actually talking about. But imagine, POV, you decide to take a big leap of faith, and after you do it, your world starts to crumble. POV, how do you feel? You move states, you get a job, and your life feels, something just does not feel right. That is not a necessarily positive, happy experience. So you could imagine after doing that, and then my world literally feeling like it's falling apart, when I'm a 12-hour drive from my family, friends, everything I've ever known. You can imagine why that would be the most terrifying experience ever. So that happened, and it prompted many different questions, one of which we've already kind of talked about is, what is my purpose? Scratch that. What is in alignment with my highest good? And during this period of my life, it's been a roller coaster. I kind of walked away from spirituality, if you will, for a while, and it's not even that simple. It wasn't like I wanted to abandon being spiritual or those practices or being mindful. It wasn't like I intentionally did that, but because I was going through such a difficult time, I just sunk. Like, I felt like, and when I've explained this to people, it's felt like I just had to be human. After I woke up spiritually, I felt like, oh my gosh, now that I've figured it all out, newsflash, that never really happens. You don't ever figure everything out. So I let go of that quickly, but now that I've figured it all out and I know what's going on, what spirituality is, I didn't believe in really anything before, or actually I really just didn't know what I believed in. I have something to believe in. I felt so confident. Oh my gosh, I have all these new tools. I know how to manifest. I know how to do this. I know how to heal. And like, how could I would never ever lose this. I could never lose this part of me now that it's awakened. And I don't think you ever really do lose that part of you, even when you're not spiritual, and even if it's not your, I almost said purpose, it's not in your path to wake up in this lifetime. Yeah, I think you're still spiritual, you know what I mean? But anyway, that was a tangent. But I thought I could never lose this piece of me. I thought I could never not be spiritual and never not believe in things the way that I believe in them in this very moment. And then came a moment that was so difficult for me to handle. Not that I questioned everything, but I sank so low into my human nature that I kind of lost everything, or I felt like I did. I didn't feel connected to myself, let alone connected to my guides or the universe or anything of that nature. And I just felt incredibly lost. And after waking up, feeling like I figured out what was going on in my life and what my purpose was, to lose everything was hard. I never thought that I would have to feel that way ever again. And so I brought that up really to shed some light on, it's okay. It's okay to walk away. It's okay to question things even after you feel like you've spiritually awakened. It's okay to be confused. It's okay to feel like you just have to be a human. It is okay. And I had to experience that. I also had to understand that as much as I thought I knew what duality was, I didn't know what duality was until I re-entered that state, kind of like what I experienced right before I woke up, where everything felt confusing, where I felt like I knew absolutely nothing. I had no idea if I was going to be okay, if I was going to figure things out, if I was ever going to feel spiritually enlightened or spiritually guided ever again. That is how raw I felt, and that was hard to sit with because I never thought I was going to have to feel that way again. But I needed to, you know, like just because you wake up spiritually doesn't absolve you from feeling anything really, or experiencing anything. If it's for you to experience or for you to learn something, or put you right back on the right path. In my case, I think that's what it was about. I just saw a butterfly out my window, so yeah, definitely putting me back on the right path. I totally just lost my train of thought. But yeah, I just wanted to bring that up, mainly for anybody that may be going through something like that, or has gone through something like that post-awakening, who is confused about, / is confused about what that means. It doesn't mean anything. I mean, it does. But what I'm saying is that on your spiritual path, it does not mean anything. You're not doing anything wrong. You're not. You just have to trust. But yes, that was really hard for me to go through after feeling so great for like 2 years. And not everything was great, don't get me wrong, but I felt, you know, the highs were really high. And even when things weren't going bad and I had healing work to do and things that I needed to process, like, I just felt so eager to do it. And to finally hit a point where, you know, I felt like I could barely just be a human. I think I chose one thing to focus on that was, you know, for myself, which was working out. And so I guess I should elaborate on kind of what I felt like I quote unquote abandoned during that time. So for 2 years, I practiced tarot pretty much on a daily basis, affirmations, meditating, gratitude, manifesting, you know, sitting with myself, doing mirror work, doing shadow work, feeling all of the feelings. That was something that I did, if not daily, very, very frequently. And it was something that I never thought that I would ever walk away from or abandon in my entire life. And so when I felt I just did not have the energy to do it, I was sucked so dry from what was going on in my personal life that I did not feel like I could do that. It was terrifying. Like, it was terrifying. Seriously. It was spooky. And I went from like having these conversations with myself every day to not. And then I remember I would look in the mirror and I genuinely felt like I couldn't recognize myself. And that was hard. I felt so disconnected to myself, not only just like internally, like I felt like I've always had very strong intuition, I'm very stubborn, but for the most part can get to the bottom of what a message is from my highest self or from spirit eventually. It may not be in that moment, but eventually figuring that out. And then to enter a place where I would look at myself and feel so disconnected from myself, and then also like internally felt like, well, I can't even explain it. If you know what I'm talking about, you know. I felt very, very dissociation. I was very dissociated. I don't know if that's a word. Very dissociated during that period of my life, and I felt like I was just going through the motions. And you know, you're sitting there thinking, this is what everybody does. Everybody moves. Everybody gets a job. Everybody would do it. And I'm going through these motions, and I feel terrible. So I went off on a major tangent because I think I was supposed to be talking about purpose and whatnot. But yes, that really difficult period of my life that I feel like I'm almost out of the woods of now, prompted a lot of questions. Like, what am I doing? What is the point? Am I really going to do this for the rest of my life? Am I ever going to be happy again? Did I, you know, all this spiritual stuff, and I woke up and like, where is it right now? Because I don't even feel like I can access it. What happened? Where am I? What's going on? And most importantly, like, is this for me? Is this the kind of life that I want to live? Is this for me? And I was stuck in that place, and I want to kind of talk about where I am now, but I want to say also for those listening who may resonate with the place that I was just speaking about, it didn't happen in, you know, for just a month or 2 months. I would say a solid 4 to 5 months before I even, there's a ladybug. So if that's a symbol for you, we have a butterfly and a ladybug. Gosh, I cannot stay on a train of thought. That did not last for a short period of time. And I guess, you know, 5 months is really not that. Okay, let me just scratch a lot. I really just got distracted by that ladybug, and now I'm like word vomiting and I can't get my thoughts straight. I would say it took me about 5 months before I finally was like, oh my gosh, I need to reconnect with myself. Above anything, that's what I felt. It's like, I haven't talked to myself, I haven't checked in with myself since I moved here. And even before that, it was such a chaotic move that I wasn't really in tune with myself before that. But this has just been the hardest part. And that's when I started to pick back up spiritually, or try to. But at that point, I had to relearn a lot. You know, it's like, it really is like if you stop working out for a year, you don't just like go run a marathon, or shit, even go run a mile, which I don't know that I can run a mile easily right now. So when I reopened some of these mindful practices and spiritual practices, it did not happen overnight. I, again, had to kind of pick one thing to focus on to get myself back right, and it took a long, long time. I still don't feel like I'm 100% back, but I'm way better than I was, and I'm so glad that I decided to reconnect with myself and with spirit. Because God, and now again, I'm like, I can't, like, wow, that was so hard. I don't ever want to lose myself or lose spirit ever again. Not that you ever really do, but I don't ever want to feel that way again if I don't have to help it. I talked about this period, which is still kind of currently going on. I talked about this period because as hard as those feelings and emotions were to experience, and to feel like I literally started all over again, back at square one, it's because I needed to do that. And this is just a really important little thing to share for those hard learners, which I am one of them, is that when spirit is trying to guide you somewhere or get you to let go of something, they will try, they will do it, they will try. And it may be subtle at first. You may notice, hey, you know, all of a sudden this isn't really working the way that it used to, or you're seeing signs to end or stop or change something, and oh, well, I don't know, I still want to keep going, I still want to try this or do blank. Just FYI, spirit will keep sending those lessons until it becomes a tower moment, okay? Just FYI, I don't think every single tower moment is avoidable / dark night of the soul. To me, they can sometimes very much be synonymous, but I feel like maybe the dark night of the soul is the very beginning, and I do think you may go through another dark night of the soul. I definitely think I just did, but tower moments can happen a little bit more frequently, and I would say the dark night of the soul is definitely a tower moment, but not every single tower moment is a dark night of the soul. And again, if you don't know what a tower moment is, I will talk about that eventually. I guess I should. I don't know if I can explain it right now. It's just when the bottom falls out, kind of like what I was talking about earlier, but the dark night of the soul is really going through the deepest, darkest depths of your soul, and things that are no longer serving you are removed, / coping mechanisms, things of that nature. When you try to do them to cope with whatever's going on, they will not resonate the same, they won't feel the same, they won't feel as good, they won't feel like they're fixing the problem. And it's really to get you to turn to Spirit. They're both, I'll have to give it some thought, honestly, and I will do an episode on those two topics, but I needed to go through that because I can be a very hard learner, and Spirit was trying to show me something. Now that everything's kind of been said and done, I realized that Spirit has been trying to show me the path this entire time, and I just didn't really get it, and that's okay. But this is just a message that tower moments can be avoided if you pay attention. Claps. You can avoid tower moments, Skylar Shuford. You can. You don't always have to choose the hardest path, but I chose the hardest path this time, and it really fucking sucked. So we don't have to keep doing that. This is me talking to myself right now, and to whoever needs to hear this. We don't have to choose the hardest path. We can listen. We don't have to know what the other option is if Spirit is clearly guiding us to this way. Yes. Listen, listen, listen. Okay. So I had to have a very rude awakening to figure out what direction I was really guided to take my life in. And let's see, let me make sure that I'm still on track with what I want to be talking about. Yeah, in order for me to really understand what is in alignment with my highest good in terms of work or career, or what do I want to put out into the universe and be remembered for, I chose the long path, the long route, if you will. And so when I decided, or when I began to when I began to reconnect with myself spiritually, it did not happen overnight. It was a very long process, and again, that was the question that was on my mind all the time. Well, if this is not what I'm supposed to be doing, what is? What am I supposed to be doing? What's my purpose? What's in alignment with my highest good, basically? And something I have not mentioned yet is that after I woke up spiritually, about 6 months into that process of truly healing, I finally picked up a tarot deck and started learning how to read tarot, how to connect to my intuition in order to do that. And by the end of 2020, I started reading professionally online. And so some of you may know me from that. Some of you may have just stumbled on this video. But yes, I have been a tarot reader for almost, well, I've read tarot for 2 years, but professionally almost 2 years. Yes, I guess I've read tarot for 2.5 years. And professionally, I have read tarot for almost 2 years. It'll be 2 years in December. So I had completely stopped reading for people. I stopped reading for myself. And when I was trying to figure out, okay, well, now I'm here. I have no idea what's going on. I need to figure out what's next. And the only thing I could start with was tarot. That's where it all began, really, for me to begin with. Like, I watched tarot readings. That's what helped get me through my first dark night of the soul, and eventually led me to picking up my own decks. And I was like, that's just where I'm going to start. I'm going to start reading for myself every day again, to build up my stamina, to reconnect with my cards, myself, etc. And then I'll give it a little while, and then I will reopen my professional readings. So that's exactly what I did. That's what I started with. And still, I did that more as like, okay, this is the beginning point. But I still don't really know what I'm supposed to be doing right now. So as Wen does, we do a lot of soul searching, watching tarot videos, thinking, listening to podcasts, journaling, etc. And I still could not figure out how to fix this. I thought maybe, I need to get another job. Oh, maybe it's the place. Maybe I just need to move. Maybe I need to move home. Maybe I just need to have a remote job. You know, I thought of all of these things about what might fix what I'm actually going through. And I'm like, well, sorry, I'm just getting really emotional talking about this because it's hard. And I pretty much questioned everything, and it wasn't until I got this tarot reading from a beloved reader that I adore so much, and she's felt like such a mentor to me. She does, I think it's Happy Souls 1111 or Happy Twins 1111. I've watched her tarot readings literally since the beginning of my awakening, and I had the opportunity to book a reading with her, which she does not always have her calendar open. And when we talked about what I was going through, she told me that, yeah, you're not in alignment. That's why all this is happening. I mean, I was having health issues. I felt awful. I was having really bad things happen to me. And it wasn't even like I was doing bad things or doing low vibrational things. And all I'm saying is just because you do quote unquote bad things or low vibrational things does not mean you deserve bad things to happen to you. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is I wasn't putting myself in harm's way by any means, and I was being harmed consistently and going through traumatic things, and I felt like I couldn't get my footing. And finally I had this tarot reading where she said, yeah, there's a reason why, because you're not supposed to be doing this. That's why it sucks so bad, basically. And I was like, wow, well, that makes a lot of sense. But one thing that she told me that pretty much rang in my ears for months was, I don't want you to feel like you made a wrong decision. There are no wrong decisions, and that is true. There are no wrong decisions. But you took the long route. Maybe it was just something you needed to learn, but you just took the long path, the long way around. And then, of course, that was something I needed to hear, but it, you know, it created a ton of other questions about, well, the long path. Well, what was I supposed to be doing? Like, what would I have done? You know, if I hadn't moved here and done what I did, what would I have done? Was it this other job that I was supposed to accept? Was I supposed to move somewhere else? You know, going back in these external rotation, basically. And for months, I sat on those questions. I sat on what she told me, and I had absolutely no idea what she meant. And that was kind of like the next code I needed to unlock. And as I was going through this process, it felt like, you know, I would have a question. Okay, well, what's the purpose? What's my purpose? What am I supposed to be doing? Then I get to the point where, yeah, what you're doing is not what you're supposed to be doing, and it is not in alignment with your highest good. You just took the long path. Okay, well, what was the other path I was supposed to take? And sat with that question for many months. And it wasn't until more recently, which, you know, if we're giving months a timeline, God, I don't even know, 10 months, it's been 10 months since really all of this started for me, like right now in this very moment. It wasn't until about that 8-month mark where I finally started to understand what she meant. At this point, I had full sent my tarot business again. I was reading at markets in person, which was something that I'm so grateful that I get to do, and I'm so grateful that I did it, because I almost didn't. I have a few friends here now that I've been doing this who do these local markets, and I just go sit out there with a table and my cards and read for any person who decides to come up to me and sit down, and that was a major turning point in this entire journey, because it was the only thing that actually was working. You know, I was banging my head against the wall and nothing felt right. I just felt like I couldn't get anything right. Nothing was just flowing the way that it used to be, when I felt so good and so spiritually happy and high vibrational and in alignment, etc., etc. And then, you know, my tarot markets were mostly an outlet, but they were extremely happy times and fulfilling times for me. And at that point that I got that reading from that tarot reader that I was talking about, probably been doing those markets for maybe a couple months, and it wasn't until like July, I think, July or August, where it finally all clicked. That was what I was supposed to be doing this entire time. I was supposed to be reading, I was supposed to be doing light work, and I don't really like the word supposed to, but I don't know what other verbiage to use. That's what's in alignment for me, is sharing my story. It's talking to people, it is doing light work, it is figuring out what that means. But I knew, one day I was talking to my therapist and it literally just came out of my mouth. Like, I had been asking these questions and like, God, I just cannot figure out, I can't crack this code, and all of a sudden I'm having a conversation and it just flew out of my mouth and I was in shock. I was like, oh my God, I think I just figured it out. I guess in order for all of that to make sense, about finally figuring out what the long path was. This time last year, I had graduated college. I'd been out of school for probably a couple months, 4 or 5 months, and I have said for a very long time, so when I'm going to explain this to you, it's going to seem pretty obvious about what the answer was to these questions all the time. But of course, the mind tends to overcomplicate things. And I have said for a long time that I did not feel like I was meant to do a conventional job. Probably since I was like 16 or 17, I've felt like that. And, you know, when I went through school, I tried many different things. I tried to do a little YouTube, I tried to do a little social media influencing, that kind of thing. And it was the only thing that really took off and worked for me is when I woke up spiritually and started reading tarot professionally. It was, if you've ever read The Alchemist, it was beginner's luck. That's literally what it was. It just worked. Like, I didn't have to do much. I just started and started posting videos on TikTok, and like it just came natural to me. And I was reading for people from all over who I'd never met, and yeah, that was the only thing that had ever worked for me, but I never really thought about it as something I could do full time. Fast forward to the very end of my college career, when everyone's trying to get jobs, and of course this is in the middle of the pandemic, so it's not that simple anymore. And even through the pandemic, it bought me some time to kind of explore some of those said things, including reading tarot. And when I graduated, I didn't have a job. A lot of my friends didn't have a job, but I didn't have a job, and I didn't really want to get one, to be honest. I really wanted to explore other things, and that's what I told my family. I said I want to take a year and explore what else might be out there. I did do some of that for that time period after I graduated, but you know, one, I did not have the knowledge yeah, I just didn't have the knowledge or the energy or the intention that I have now to start projects and stick with them. But also I was so confused and felt like I did need to get a full-time job, because that's what everybody does, right? Everyone becomes an adult and gets a job, and Skylar, you just have to grow up, and you're going to have to come to terms with this is what you have to do. And so initially when I started looking for jobs, initially after I graduated, I wasn't looking for jobs at all and was trying to do my own thing. But, eventually I just started to feel this pressure to conform. And that was really hard to deal with. So I eventually transitioned into this period of working a little part-time job while also trying to post on social media and do fashion content, and also do some tarot reading, and also look for full-time jobs at the same time. And so, as you can imagine, putting that kind of energy out into the universe it's kind of confusing, and that's something that with manifesting I talk about all the time, and we talk about all the time, is your intention. You've got to be clear, and if you want something, first of all, you've got to set that intention and say, this is what I want, universe, give it to me. But you also have to put yourself in the way for that to actually happen for you. You've got to apply some pressure in order for it to happen to you. If you're looking for a job, obviously you're going to apply to jobs. You're not going to just say, hey universe, I want a job, and with a lot of money, and just sit there until somebody hands you a job. So what I was doing is I had all this energy going on out into the universe, probably extremely confusing. So nothing was really happening. I wasn't building my business. I wasn't building my social media, whatever you want to call that. I was just confusing myself and confusing the universe. So when I sat there with my therapist, now I'm speaking more in more recent times, when I sat there with my therapist and was talking about this question that my tarot reader has brought up, what is the long path? What does that even mean? I was like, oh my gosh, it's not external, it's not another job, it might be another place because I don't love it here, but it doesn't have to necessarily be another place. It's exploring what I said I was going to explore last year when I graduated, but actually exploring it rather than just picking something up and not really, I know y'all heard that, and not really applying myself in the way that I know I can now. And I came to that conclusion. My mind was fucking blown, first of all. And then, I called my friend and I told her, and she was like, I told her and I was like, oh my gosh, it was so simple this entire time. The answer was right there in front of my face, and it was so simple. And she was like, sometimes, the easiest answers are the hardest ones to figure it out because we overcomplicate everything. And I was like, you are so right. You are so right. With all that being said, sometimes the answer is really not that hard. Sometimes it is right in front of you. And also, fun fact, we always know the answer. Some version of ourselves, our highest self, knows the answer at all times, and it's just a matter of getting to that answer, that conclusion. And for me, it took me all around just to realize that the answer was right there in front of my face the entire time, and it just never felt like that was the possibility. And so back to kind of what started this episode about purpose/alignment. I realized that what was in alignment with my highest good was some form of light work or healing work, something of that nature. And tarot for me does not necessarily feel like it's the end goal, that I'm going to do that forever. I don't know. That's why I said I don't think we just have one purpose. We're so much more complex in that. I love reading tarot, but does that mean that that's where this ends? I just read tarot professionally and that's it? I don't think so. But something that I realized also right after figuring out that answer was thinking back to my childhood, and I had seen somewhere along my journey spiritually that when you're trying to figure out what it is that you're intended to do on this earth, think about the kind of things that you love to do as a child. And I've thought about that for a while, and again, it was another one of those things where I thought about it and I could never really figure out what the answer was. And one day, very shortly after having that aha moment about the long path, which was right in front of my face, I realized that the things that I loved to do as a child included singing and acting and talking to people and expressing some sort of an emotion. And when I was in high school, I wanted to start a YouTube channel, and then I wanted to start a podcast, and I read tarot for people. I realized that all of those things have to do with me expressing myself in some way to a group, an audience, a person, whatever. And that is what is in alignment with my highest good. And all of those answers, it's funny because all of those answers were there the entire time. I just overcomplicated things. I just made it way harder than it actually needed to be. So that's kind of where I'm at, and that's why I'm sitting here today starting this podcast. I have no idea. Hopefully it's only up from here, because I honestly don't know if I just killed that shit, but I'm really just glad I started, because again, at this point I know that this is something that I need to do, and sometimes the hardest part is just starting. So I'm putting myself out there. My camera is 100% about to die, so I don't know how long I've been going, but I feel like this is a good place to stop, and I want to say thank you so much if you made it through this episode, this very first episode of Who Knows, and I will see you next week. Make sure to follow me on social media. Tarot by Sky Shu is my tarot reading Instagram. Skylar Shuford is my regular Instagram, and Tarot by Sky Shu is also my TikTok. So if you'd like to book a reading, see the link below or look at my website from Instagram. Anyway, I don't know. Figure it out. If you need to find me, it's not that hard. My name is Skylar Shuford, or Tarot by Sky Shu. Just look it up. Thank you so much for watching this or listening to this, and I will see you next week, and I love you so much. And the answer sometimes is not that freaking hard. Okay, goodbye.